Alexei and Oksana's story began when they crossed paths in the university library, both in search of economics books for their classes. Engaging in conversation to pass the time, they found themselves drawn to each other's company. Their connection continued to grow as they decided to extend their evening together in the student cafe, where they discussed a range of topics including music, movies, and student news. This initial encounter eventually led to a blossoming romance, and 2 years after graduating, they tied the knot. The early years of their marriage were filled with happiness. Alexei quickly secured a job as an engineer in a reputable firm's planning and technical department. With a decent salary and promising prospects, he diligently climbed the corporate ladder, thanks to his knowledge and skills. In contrast, Oksana faced challenges in finding professional success with her diploma. Eventually, she managed to secure a position in a smaller accounting firm's office, hoping to gain the necessary experience that would open doors to better opportunities. They were fortunate to have a place to call home, as Oksana's parents gifted them their house. Additionally, Alexei's parents contributed to their new life by providing them with a car. The situation was once harmonious, but recently things had taken a turn. Oksana had a change of heart about having children, becoming more temperamental and demanding. Alexei noticed her frequent calls at his workplace, inquiring about his whereabouts and assignments. Initially, he didn't pay much attention, but over time, he grew curious about her constant need for information. Additionally, Oksana started arriving late, sometimes even slightly intoxicated. She attributed this to the hectic nature of an ongoing audit for a particular firm and being treated during someone's birthday celebration. It was difficult for Alexei to decline such invitations. He linked all these strange occurrences to Oksana's friend, Olga, who was married to Nikolai. Alexei and Nikolai shared a friendly relationship. After careful consideration of the situation, Alexei decided to have lunch with Nikolai at a nearby cafe. During their meeting, Alexei shared the peculiarities in his married life, and Nikolai revealed that he was experiencing similar issues. They discussed the problem, and Nikolai advised caution, stating, "I have the means to keep a close eye on things, but for now, you should stay uninvolved. Continue behaving as you normally would. I'm concerned that if you intervene, things might spiral out of control. You have a hot temper, and your martial arts training requires endurance." Alexei replied, "I understand the need for control. However, if Oksana is indeed cheating, I fear I may lose my composure." Nikolai reassured him, saying, "Just wait for my call. We will handle this together." Oksana typically arrived home from work around 7 or 8 p.m. and always seemed to be in a cheerful mood. Occasionally, she would come home later. However, on this particular day, she surprised Alexei by announcing that there was going to be an audit in the district, and they would be away for 2 days. Alexei questioned her about the audit on a Friday night and over the weekend, but Oksana ignored his concerns. He also noticed that she was dressed in more revealing clothing, which was unusual for office work. As she left for work, Alexei immediately called Nikolai for more information. Nikolai confirmed that his own wife was going on a business trip, as well, and mentioned that they would be informed about their destination for the trip. This gave Alexei the idea to follow them. Alexei spent the day at the construction site, addressing any identified issues, and decided with the company's director on the timeline for resolving them. The meeting concluded early in the evening, and as Alexei stepped outside to his car, he received a phone call from Nikolai. Nikolai informed him that their wives were currently at a pub in the new neighborhood, near the hotel they were supposedly staying at, along with the director, his deputy, and a couple of department heads. Nikolai estimated that he would arrive in about 5 minutes. Alexei responded, "Great, I'll be there at the same time. I'm right next door." He then drove to the restaurant as instructed by Nikolai, parked his car, and entered the lobby. Nikolai was already waiting for him and informed him that their wives were in a separate room across from the bandstand. Alexei strode ahead with Nikolai trailing behind, attempting to convey something important. However, the noise around them drowned out Nikolai's words, leaving Alexei oblivious to his companion's attempt at communication. Upon entering the office, Alexei was met with a chaotic scene. A boisterous and inebriated group of people cluttered the space. The director, his arms wrapped around his wife, clutched a champagne glass and uttered incomprehensible statements. As he glanced over and noticed an unfamiliar face, he remarked, "Young man, you've mistakenly stumbled upon the wrong gathering. Our festivities involve the company of ladies." Oksana sprang up, exclaiming, "Alexei, what are you doing here?" In the midst of the commotion, Olga also caught sight of Nikolai and let out a distressed cry, "Kolya, it's not what you think." Unaware of their true identities, Vladimir Ivanovich, rising from his seat, declared, "Leave at once, you little troublemakers. You're interrupting my time with the ladies." He had no time to utter another word. Alexei's well-executed punch sent him sprawling backwards. The room erupted in chaos as everyone jumped to their feet, and Alexei turned his fury on everyone in his path. The employees who had bravely tried to shield the director were met with a relentless barrage of powerful blows, causing them to scatter in every direction. Amidst the commotion, the director struggled to regain his senses, but this only drew the wrath of the enraged Alexei, resulting in a merciless onslaught of punches. The table of appetizers and drinks was sent flying as Alexei's ferocity knew no bounds, and the sound of shattering crockery filled the air. Oksana and Olga's screams echoed through the chaos, adding to the pandemonium. Nikolai leaped forward, desperately attempting to pull Alexei away from the bloodied principal, but it was an arduous task. Alexei, driven by a surge of adrenaline, utilized his legs like weapons, mercilessly stomping on Vladimir Ivanovich, who lay unresponsive and unaware. Restaurant staff members joined forces to try and subdue Alexei, until finally, a squad of police officers arrived on the scene, intervening in the brutal altercation. As witnesses, seasoned veterans of the restaurant industry remarked that they had never witnessed such a brutal beating before. With the assistance of police officers and willing volunteers, Alexei was loaded into a waiting car and taken to the nearest police station. Nikolai, too, was escorted there separately, his mind still reeling from the violent spectacle. As he glanced one final time at Vladimir Ivanovich being loaded into the ambulance, his unconscious form a stark reminder of the mayhem that had just unfolded, he noticed another worker being ushered into the vehicle. The police swiftly took action and successfully identified all the individuals involved in the conflict. Soon after, an additional police car arrived at the scene and transported everyone to the police station. A diligent investigator from the department arrived at the restaurant and began scrutinizing the area where the incident occurred. They meticulously assessed the extent of the damage caused. Interestingly, it was discovered that this particular company had frequented the restaurant on numerous occasions in the past. On this particular date, they had reserved 2 adjacent 2-room suites at the hotel, planning to stay for a total of 3 days, from Friday to Sunday. The investigator proceeded to inspect the rooms and stumbled upon a large stockpile of food and alcohol in one of them. It was clear that this supply was intended to last more than just one evening. Meanwhile, Alexei and Nikolai were both held in separate cells within the police station, but were given the opportunity to communicate with one another. Nikolai chastised Alexei, expressing his disappointment by saying, "I specifically asked you to keep yourself in check." In response, Alexei defended himself, stating, "I did until he provoked me by insisting on going out with the girls." Nikolai attempted to reason with him, saying, "All right, even if there was one moment when you had to intervene, you went too far." Alexei then admitted remorsefully, "I got carried away when I saw him still moving and talking." Nikolai corrected him, emphasizing he wasn't just talking, he was unconscious. Alexei, seemingly oblivious to the severity of the situation, replied, "I don't know where he was at that moment." Nikolai questioned him further, asking, "Why did you stomp on him?" An exasperated Alexei responded, "You were holding my hands back, and he was just so vulnerable. It was too tempting not to take advantage of the situation." Nikolai then reminded him sternly, "Not only did you harm him, but you also accidentally injured Olga while trying to straighten things out." Defensively, Alexei admitted, "Yes, I accidentally hit Olga while dealing with him, but I can't say the same for Oksana. That was not accidental." All the other participants of the fight were gathered in the corridor near the duty station. while Olga and Oksana secluded themselves to discuss their next steps. Oksana expressed her surprise, saying, "I never expected Alexei to get so angry. The whole restaurant couldn't even hold him back. What should we do now?" Olga reassured her, saying, "I think Kolya will forgive me. There was nothing between us." Oksana was concerned about their belongings still being in the hotel room, to which Olga replied, "He doesn't know about it." Oksana lamented about their efforts going to waste, saying, "So we worked overtime for nothing. It could have ruined our careers. I can't bear it if Alexei leaves me. It was such a stupid thing to do. And to top it off, I have a black eye." Olga sympathized, saying, "I feel the same way." Oksana then mentioned how Nikolai was supposed to hit Olga, but he couldn't reach her in time. She remarked, "Your husband could have easily beaten up the director." Surprised, Olga asked, "Did you see that?" Oksana responded, "What?" and revealed Vladimir Ivanovich and the head of internal audit were both carried away unconscious. Olga was shocked and wondered, "How did I miss that?" Oksana explained, "You were lying on the sidelines. They used smelling salts on you when they took them away, and you woke up." Feeling overwhelmed, Olga asked, "What am I going to tell Kolya now?" The interrogator, who had partially sketched the incident, initiated interviews with the victims. Simultaneously, he contacted the hospital and set aside his explanations to fill out the form for the initiation of criminal proceedings. Informed the duty officer. Based on the condition of one of the victims, this falls under Part 1 of Article 111 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation. It's unfortunate for those guys. They could face up to 8 years. If he doesn't come to his senses, it could be as much as 15. What do they have to say? I haven't spoken to them yet. I spoke to the restaurant staff. I've called them in tomorrow, but they're partly to blame as well. They allowed their girlfriends to leave work, booked hotel rooms, and planned to work overtime on the weekend. It seems their spouses found out and paid them a visit at the restaurant. If they had caught them in the hotel room, I believe he would have killed them, or even thrown them out the window since they were on the 6th floor. What is your plan of action? I will do what needs to be done. I will conduct interrogations. First, I'll question the victims, then allow them to go home. After that, it will be Nikolai's turn, followed by Alexei. The interrogator, who had spent the entire night conducting interrogations and urgent investigative actions, summoned Alexei for questioning. Alexei did not hold back and told him, "I found out by chance that my wife had deceived me, claiming she was going on an urgent inspection for 3 days. I arrived at the restaurant and discovered them in a separate office. At that moment, her director was hugging her and I could see that she was enjoying it. When he saw me, he ordered me to leave and not interfere with his fun with his girls. I couldn't control myself and hit him. I have no idea where Nikolai, our wives' friend's husband, came from. He was not involved in the altercation. I was the only one who struck them all, so I should be held accountable for it." Alexei, who was present at the aquarium, successfully convinced Nikolai to act as a witness. As a result, Nikolai was charged with an administrative offense based on sufficient evidence from the last interrogation. An administrative case was initiated against him, and a protocol was drawn up. On the other hand, Alexei was only charged with a criminal offense for intentionally causing serious harm to someone's health, posing a danger to human life. The interrogator warned Alexei that if Vladimir Ivanovich were to unfortunately pass away, the charges would be different. Following this, both Alexei and Nikolai were sent to a temporary detention center. However, their stay there was brief, as they were taken to court at 10 o'clock. The judge reviewed Nikolai's case and decided to impose an administrative punishment, sentencing him to 10 days of arrest. During the hearing, the judge remarked, "This is for your own benefit, as the incident at the restaurant has already become an urban legend." Nikolai defended himself by saying, "On the contrary, I tried to intervene and stop the chaos." The judge countered with evidence that both Nikolai and Alexei had broken into a separate office and assaulted individuals there. Nikolai argued, "Is it not taken into account that my wife was present?" The judge acknowledged, "You didn't start the chaos yourself. However, your participation resulted in administrative detention." Nikolay insisted. I tried to prevent it from happening. The judge responded, Indeed, but your friend Alexei will be held fully responsible for the altercation. I am not evaluating his actions at this moment, as the investigation is ongoing. Once it concludes, we will determine how to assess his actions. Alexei was placed in custody as a precautionary measure, while Oksana and Olga, who had spent half the night at the police station, were released. As they were being released, the interrogator warned them that their husbands might not be released immediately. He advised them to decide how to explain the situation to their husbands, especially since it seemed unlikely that Alexei would be joining them anytime soon. Confused, Olga asked why Alexei wouldn't be let go. The interrogator replied sarcastically, suggesting that they could have Alexei's dead body removed from their apartment within half an hour if that was what they preferred. He emphasized that they needed to be prepared to explain their delays after work and their plans for the weekend as a business trip to their husbands. Oksana admitted that she didn't know what to tell her husband. The interrogator warned her that he would ask, and she should be ready with an explanation. He also asked about Olga's husband, jokingly suggesting that he might throw her out the window when they were home together. The interrogator mentioned that he could keep Olga's husband away for 24 hours to cool him off, but Alexei would not be released for the same duration. Confused and concerned, Olga asked about the criminal case and why it was such a big deal when it was just a fight between men. The interrogator revealed that the director involved in the fight had not regained consciousness, and the doctors were not optimistic about his recovery. This meant that Alexei could face trial, sentencing, and imprisonment as a result. Feeling distraught, Olga wondered what would happen to her. The interrogator jokingly suggested that she could marry the director, but Olga pointed out that he was already married. The interrogator humorously speculated that after her husband attacked the director, his attractiveness as a man had diminished significantly, implying that their marriage might not last much longer. Finally, the interrogator announced that Oksana and Olga were free to leave, as he needed to question their husbands next. As they stepped outside, they realized that it was already getting light. Oksana turned to Olga and asked, worriedly, what they were going to do. They had thought they would have a fun night out, but the director had unexpectedly joined their company, leading to this unfortunate situation. Yes, they covered the expenses for the table and hotel rooms. What an amazing vacation it was. What should we tell Kolka? I just hope he can calm down while serving his 24-hour sentence, or else he might come after me. Are you considering a divorce? Absolutely not. I never had any plans of that sort. I genuinely love him. I know it's a peculiar kind of love, agreeing to such an adventure. But they took us to pubs for a whole month just to prepare us for this business trip. Despite everything, we went along with it. So where should we head to next? I'm thinking of going back to the hotel. Are you crazy? Our belongings are still there, remember? And then we can head home and start preparing for the meeting. Vladimir Ivanovich awoke on Monday evening. The attending nurse, who had been alerted, entered the room and upon seeing him awake, said, "That's great. You're alive, which is the most important thing." Confused, he asked, "Where am I?" She replied, "You're in the intensive care unit. You've undergone several surgeries. The doctor on duty will be here momentarily to speak with you." The doctor arrived promptly and examined the readings on the devices, finding them satisfactory. He engaged in a brief conversation with Vladimir Ivanovich before scheduling an appointment. Curious about his time in the hospital, Vladimir asked, "How long have I been here?" The doctor replied, "You were brought in on Friday. Today is Monday." Concerned about his attackers, Vladimir inquired further, "And those who attacked me?" The doctor reassured him, "The police are handling it, and as far as I know, they have been apprehended." Wanting to contact his wife, Vladimir asked, "How can I call her?" The doctor informed him, "That won't be necessary. She has already been notified and visited you here." Wondering about the duration of his stay, Vladimir queried, "How long will I be here?" The doctor estimated, "I believe it will be around 20 days. Concerned about being the only patient, Vladimir asked, "Did they bring me alone?" The doctor revealed, no, Semyon Borisovich was also admitted. However, he escaped after being transferred to the ward this morning. But he made a mistake. His wife was informed about his hospitalization as early as Saturday, and she greeted him with a cast iron skillet when he returned home. Now he's back in the ICU in the next room. Curious about the fate of the women who were with them, Vladimir asked, "And the women who were with us? What about them?" The doctor admitted, "That is something I do not know." Determined to take action, Vladimir declared, "I'll fire those fools as soon as I get back to work." The doctor encouraged him, saying, "You can deal with that later. For now, focus on resting and recovering." On Tuesday, Alexei was called in for questioning. The investigator conducted the interrogation. Alexei had question. "Can you explain the difference between an investigator and an interrogator?" The investigator replied, "There isn't much of a difference between an inquirer and an investigator. Both are authorized to carry out investigative actions during a criminal investigation. However, there are some distinctions. In an inquiry, the procedure for bringing a suspect to the status of an accused is usually not performed. Nevertheless, I will question you after you consult with a lawyer." Alexei responded, "I didn't actually hire a lawyer." The investigator said, "Talk to him first, then decide and let me know. He is currently reviewing the case file." 40 minutes later, a man entered the office and said to the investigator, "I would like to talk to my client face to face." They were directed to an available interrogation room with barred windows. They sat down at a table, and the man introduced himself, saying, "I am Alexander Sergeyevich, your lawyer." Alexei hesitated, saying, "But I didn't ask anyone to do this. If you are sent by my wife, I don't want her help." The lawyer reassured him, saying, "No, I was hired by Ksenia Petrovna, Vladimir Ivanovich's wife." Alexei inquired, "What is this about?" The lawyer explained, "She is preparing divorce papers. While Vladimir is in the hospital, she has removed him as the director and has fired everyone at the restaurant, including Oksana and Olga." Alexei pondered, "Even them." The lawyer nodded, adding, "But our job is different. I have familiarized myself with the case, and I believe that initially you were charged with the wrong article. I see the incident as the infliction of grave or moderate harm to health in a state of effect. This falls under Article 113 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation." Curious, Alexei asked, "What is the difference?" The lawyer explained, "The difference lies in the sentence you may receive. Under this article, there are several possible options: correctional labor for up to 2 years, restriction of freedom for up to 2 years, forced labor for up to 2 years, or imprisonment for the same term." Alexei realized, "I hadn't even considered that." The lawyer responded, "That's why you have me." The investigator received an invitation and the interrogation commenced, lasting for over an hour. Despite realizing what the lawyer was insinuating, the investigator remained composed and did not show any signs of it. After assessing the evidence collected, he personally believed that Alexei had acted out of strong emotions. At the conclusion of the interrogation, the investigator asked, "My wife would like to see you. She wants to pass on a message." Alexei retorted, "Hasn't she caused enough trouble already? I won't accept any parcels from her, and I have no desire to see her." The lawyer intervened, stating, "Alexei, according to the case file, there haven't been any deliveries. They have only been going out to restaurants and cafes every night." Alexei addressed the investigator, saying, "Alexander Sergeyevich, do you honestly believe that my marriage can be salvaged? My wife betrayed me, our marriage, and my love. The question now is why she did it. Without even asking her, I can answer that she did it to further her career, as she clearly lacks the knowledge she gained at university. It's over between us." Alexei was then transferred from the temporary detention center to the detention center. He was placed in a cell with 10 other individuals, where iron beds were provided. Basic bedding such as a mattress, pillowcase, sheets, and towels were also given to him. The officer in charge of the facility assigned him a spot. Alexei entered the cell without any issues, but soon the questions began. Remembering the lawyer's advice not to discuss his case and to refrain from opening up to anyone, as well as being aware of certain rules of prison life, he replied, "And why do you want to know? "What's your purpose in asking such detailed questions?" The other person retorted, "I would like to know who you are, what your background is." Alexei responded, "Ask your Kuma asterisk or the special unit. They have all the details." The person warned him, "Mind your language." Alexei replied, "I see I have unintentionally offended you. It happens sometimes." Upon hearing that he had offended someone, his counterpart immediately rushed into the fight, unaware that Alexei was prepared for a confrontation. Without hesitation, Alexei delivered a blow to the jaw of his opponent. Two other men came to the defense of their friend, resulting in a brawl. Soon enough, the cell door swung open, separating the fighters and subsequently escorting them out of the cell. They were locked in small confinement booths while the authorities arrived and questioned each of them individually. The evening concluded with Alexei being sentenced to 10 days in solitary confinement. Alexei had no illusions about his fate and mentally prepared himself for the worst. He anticipated spending several years behind bars without any hope for miracles. A few days later, his lawyer paid him a visit and was taken aback to find him in the punishment cell. Alexei explained, "Alexander Sergeyevich, I had no other choice. The situation had to be resolved in a decisive manner." Curious, the lawyer asked, "So, did you take on the entire cell?" Alexei replied, "No, there were just 3 troublemakers. They acted like experienced inmates, as if they knew how to survive in here, like they had already done time. I couldn't let them take advantage of me or interfere with my daily routine." Perplexed, the lawyer questioned, "How did they end up in your cell? Weren't they supposed to be first-timers?" Alexei shrugged, exclaiming, "How would I know? Am I the one who assigns cells around here?" Sensing the need for further action, the lawyer suggested, "All right, why don't you wait in the holding cell for a while? I'll go and find out what I can do." Uneasy and anxious, Alexei spent what felt like an eternity waiting. Finally, the lawyer returned and informed him that they had discussed the nuances of his criminal case. Additionally, the lawyer had obtained a positive character reference from Alexei's workplace. Before bidding farewell, the lawyer cautioned, "You're going to be transferred back to the cell, but this time it will be with individuals who have prior convictions. They'll keep an eye on you there." Alexei protested, "But I haven't completed my punishment in solitary confinement." The lawyer assured him, "The head of the detention center has rescinded your punishment and is currently dealing with the individuals you were involved with. Tomorrow, they will bring you a package. Give it to the cell supervisor, and he will distribute it among the inmates." Puzzled, Alexei asked, "How did you manage to arrange all of this?" "Simply put, I proved that my father's men instigated the quarrel as a deliberate provocation, and they shouldn't have been involved in the first place. It was clear abuse and torture. I will now seek the assistance of representatives from the Public Monitoring Commission for Human Rights in places of forced detention. However, I must be cautious moving forward." Alexei was taken back to the facility and placed in a different cell with 3 other individuals. He quietly entered the cell and found an empty seat. As he observed his cellmates, he noticed their tattoos, indicating they had experienced challenging situations. In the meantime, the others set up a table and invited him to join them for a meal. Initially, he refused, claiming he had lost his appetite. One of the men responded, mentioning how they were aware of Alexei's situation and his altercation with Volodya at the restaurant. They explained that Volodya had been involved in unjustly putting a good person behind bars through a rigged audit. This individual had to defend himself, resulting in the death of a hired assassin and subsequently receiving a 15-year sentence. It was revealed that Semyon Borisovich, who used to head Vladimir Ivanovich's internal audit department, took over the victim's business. However, Semyon is currently in the hospital. Alexei found the situation perplexing, to which one of the men assured him that there was nothing unusual about such matters, considering the large amounts of money involved. Changing the subject, they inquired about Alexei's plans regarding his wife. He simply responded, "Nothing. Divorce." "Are you certain?" "Yes, I just can't understand why Vladimir Ivanovich's wife had me sign those papers. She went so far as to hire a lawyer. Are you suspicious?" "Yes, kind of. I feel like there's something fishy going on." "Well, you're the one with the smarts. You can't trust anyone. But Ksenia Petrovna is doing this to show her gratitude to you. She knew her husband was up to no good and didn't want you caught up in it. He intended to leave her with nothing, but she outsmarted him. What will happen to him now? He's still in the dark. He's lying in the hospital, unaware of what's happening. Vladimir Ivanovich was transferred from the ICU to a regular ward. His wife came to visit him during the first few days. On one occasion, she brought a notary along and Volodya signed several documents in their presence. He didn't question it at the time, but Ksenia assured him that it was necessary for the management of the auditing firm. She informed him that, in order to salvage the situation at the company, she had to let go of everyone who was involved with him, including Oksana and Olga. Today, he received news that Semyon Borisovich's wife also brought in a notary and had her husband sign some documents. When the doctor came in, Vladimir Ivanovich asked, "Can you transfer me to the same ward as Semyon Borisovich?" "I've considered it. He's in a rather downcast state. Also, I asked my wife to move me to the VIP ward. Has she approached you about it?" "No, I spoke with Ksenia Petrovna, and she didn't mention anything about your transfer to the VIP ward. As you know, it comes with a cost." The doctor kept his promise, and in the evening, Vladimir Ivanovich and Semyon Borisovich found themselves in a ward with 6 other individuals. Only Vladimir and Semyon were confined to their beds, unable to rise yet. As they sat together, Vladimir began a conversation with his head of the internal audit department. "Why did the notary's wife come to you?" Vladimir inquired. "She transferred ownership of the company, which is currently registered under my name, to herself," Semyon explained. "And what else?" Vladimir prodded further. "After all the paperwork was finalized, she dropped the bombshell on me. She's filing for divorce," Semyon replied. "Well, that's quite a situation," Vladimir remarked. "Indeed, and to make matters worse, she's accusing me of misdemeanor assault. I ended up here because I returned home," Semyon shared. "What saved you?" Vladimir asked curiously. "I suppose she was stopped from harming me by your wife," Semyon replied. "Is it true she hit you with a frying pan?" Vladimir inquired. "Oh yes, more than once," Semyon confirmed. "We're in deep trouble." Vladimir realized, a sense of despair seeping into his words. "We've lost everything." "What do you mean?" Semyon questioned, concerned. "I mean exactly that. It seems our wives have taken over our business and everything we owned," Vladimir explained grimly. "And I'm beginning to doubt if they left us anything. Perhaps they even tipped off the investigators about us hiding in the hotel." "What's the latest from the investigator?" "Which one? The one handling the restaurant case or the one handling my wife?" Semyon asked. "The restaurant," Vladimir clarified. "He hasn't provided any updates. Alexei is in custody, and I have been declared a victim," Semyon admitted. "Tell me, what do we do now?" "We've gotten ourselves into quite a mess. Taking over Andrei Stepanovich's company was the beginning of our downfall," Vladimir reflected, realizing the gravity of their situation. "I had no involvement in it, Volodya. I was simply following your instructions. Besides, this business is now under my wife's name. Let her handle it. Listen, if our main auditing firm is shaken up, we're going to be in trouble. The real question is, what are our wives up to?" After that unforgettable night, Oksana went back to work. Ksenia Petrovna came into their office, placing a piece of paper in front of each of them, and asked, "Do you know how to write a statement?" "It's not our fault, Ksenia Petrovna. Vladimir Ivanovich threatened to fire us if we didn't go to the restaurant. I had no idea my husband would be there, let alone yours. Now they're both in jail. Nikolai for 24 hours, and Alexei is facing prosecution. I'm doing you a favor. I have to protect the reputation of our firm. Everyone who was at the restaurant will be dismissed. You two have become notorious in the neighborhood, and it's causing quite a stir. But it was our first time there." "What are you talking about? Every night for the past month, you've been going to pubs and cafes after work. It's a shame. Alyosha found out. Did you tell them you were at a hotel or a pub?" "I don't know how they found out." "Well, it's a shame. I actually planned to catch you in your hotel room and pay you off there. But your husband's ruined everything and made a scene all over town. So where do we go now? That's not my concern. You no longer work here. Oksana and Olga wrote their statements, went to the personnel office, collected their labor books, and settled things with the accounting department. Olga suggested, Oksana, should we celebrate our dismissal? How about going to either your place or mine? We can swing by the mall on the way and grab some stronger drinks and snacks. I don't mind staying at your place, especially since Kolka is on call and no one will be home. Listen, what will you do once Kolka's 24 hours are up? You've asked me before, but I still don't know. I don't want a divorce, but I'm not sure what Kolya wants. At least you'll see Kolya soon, but I have no idea when I'll see Alexei. Whose fault is it that he gets so angry? I knew and noticed that he's boiling with anger because I've been delaying after work. I knew it would lead to a fight, and I didn't want that. Okay, let's get going.